with our current society, we consume a lot. And for these things that we consume, there has to be a step to make them, which is production. They have to go through factories, large factories, which at the end of the day produce a lot of carbon, a lot of waste, a lot of pollution. And while there has been no definite way of stopping us from consuming, I guess there should be ways to make these factories a lot more efficient and a lot more sustainable. So we can all enjoy our planet. And that's what today's guest on GreenTech Pulse is doing with technology. He's Simon D. Kim. He's the founder of Glassdome. And today he's going to share his technology. He's going to share what he's doing in the green tech space. And hopefully, like I've been doing all this while, I'm going to learn a lot from him today. So welcome to the show, Simon.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I was reading your profile and I saw that you used to work on air quality monitors before switching to Glassdome. So what made you switch? Just tell us your journey up to this point.
Yeah, so before Glassdome, I had the privilege of working at a startup, air quality monitoring IoT startup called Aware. And I was a kind of a founding member and early software engineering head, working on the technology for basically air quality monitoring using the hardware and also the software kind of stacks. So, with what I learned from that startup, basically realized that there's great potential with IoT data, and was very much inspired to use that kind of technology for industrial space, where especially manufacturing is quite an underserved industry. So that's how we got started.
Amazing. So now you use IoT data in this factory. So what exactly does Glassdome do with these factories with that data to make these factories greener?
So yeah, firstly, I think it might be worthwhile to explain how much manufacturing has just all kinds of siloed data. So manufacturing obviously relies on lots of automation equipment, and all those equipment has silos of data that manufacturers usually don't have great access to or easy access to. And what we do is we have the IoT technology stack, what we call Glassdome Gateway, that we can plug into these machines, and it frees or extracts data from those machines. And we make those data available, readily available in a way that helps the manufacturers be responsive to these upcoming regulations, especially. So EU has a battery regulation that mandates disclosing of site-specific emission data. So for a company that wants to sell products, especially battery products, to EU, disclosing such emission data can be very complex and cumbersome. But by utilizing our technology and our software, they can do that in a very efficient manner.
I think this issue of data is something I've talked about a lot of times because I was mentioning a couple of days back that everything these days has sensors, and these sensors bring a lot of data, and this data, like you said, is siloed, is wasted because we don't know what to do with it. So I think that's a really great use of this data. So now, when you look at these factories you work with and factories in general, what are the biggest environmental problems you see these factories facing today?
So environmental problems, as in like specific aspects of the environmental kind of impacts that they're having, or the challenges like that they face in general.
Yeah, the impacts they're having on the environment.
I think every industry is quite different, but one thing that we see as a common issue for manufacturing companies is that a lot of their emission actually comes from scope 3 emission. Scope 3 refers to the emission that's coming from their supply chain. So scope 1 and 2 refers to the emissions that are directly emitted or indirectly emitted through the site that's run by the manufacturer. Scope 3, on the other hand, coming from all of their suppliers in the supply chain, and the manufacturer doesn't directly control those emissions. So gaining some sort of visibility on the supply chain's emission and environmental impact has been a great challenge for pretty much every single manufacturer.
Okay. So far, at least before you started doing this with the factories, why do you think it was so hard for them to actually make use of this data? What made it really difficult for them to make use of it?
Yeah. Firstly, manufacturing involves just lots of technology, lots of different systems, even for small to medium enterprises, but especially for large enterprises, they use variety of different, very complex systems. So, whether it be ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning System, or PLM, or SCM, there are just ton of different systems on the IT level, information technology level. But also, when it comes to manufacturing, the challenge becomes even more complex because it involves actual automation equipment level machine data that's not really meant for easy data sharing. So, all of us are very familiar with different kinds of data sharing on the internet level for our personal usage and whatnot. But for when it goes to the industrial kind of usage of such technology, data sharing is not really baked into the machines and the services or software that they use. So extracting data from these machines is, to begin with, very challenging, very technical work that not many companies can do internally. Most of these companies rely on external expertise to get the data out of their machines. But also another challenge is that all these vendors are, very different. It's a very heterogeneous environment when it comes to manufacturing. A single manufacturer doesn't use equipment that's uniform throughout their facility. They use tens of different vendors for manufacturing of their goods. So that's first, kind of challenge for being able to utilize such data. Second, that's a little bit more specific to our applications with helping manufacturing companies is that all these EU regulations or any upcoming regulations have very complex logic and requirements for how these data should be reported. So just because they have good graphs of data collection and managing their own internal data doesn't mean that they are able to readily share that with the regulatory body or any third party. So just the fact that societies nowadays just require quite complex data reporting in general, especially for the upcoming regulations, is what's kind of hindering these companies when it comes to utilizing such data.
Okay, so now you mentioned that most of these manufacturers they all use different systems. They are each of them has a different set of machines, software, and whatever. So how does your software plug into these different systems? How easy is it for it to plug in and extract this data that you need from them?
Yeah, so maybe it's worth noting Glassdome as a company really started as a company that specializes in data acquisition, which basically means gathering data on the manufacturing floor. So when we talk to manufacturing companies early in a history of our company, we realized that a lot of these companies had the common problem of wanting to extract data from these very heterogeneous different types of machines. So we invested quite a bit on these what we call low-level driver softwares. You can think of it as kind of the back in the days when you use printers, you had to install all these USB drivers to
Yeah.
be able to talk to printers, right? So you can think of our low-level drivers being similar to those USB printer kind of software. But we developed all these drivers for different kinds of machines, and we actually cover, majority, I would say maybe 80, 90% of the equipment that's out in the market. So with this technology, we are able to very easily pull data out of the machine and then house it in a way that's normalized and uniform for our clients to utilize.
Interesting. So now, for a company that invests in this software, do you have any example or any case study of a company that used maybe Glassdome and the results they got from using Glassdome?
Yeah, I can maybe share two main kind of industries and use cases. One is going back to the battery industry and how EU, European Union, has an upcoming regulation for battery industry. So we're actually working with one of the largest kind of global EV battery manufacturing company and also their suppliers. But what we do for them is help them set up data pipelines and data gathering mechanisms, even on the factory level. Go in, understand their processes, and then at the end of the day, implement a software that directly helps them respond to the EU battery regulation by disclosing site-specific emission data for each of their product lines. So that's been pretty interesting and also powerful application of our technology. And we see actually the demand for the battery and any other type of energy storage systems. The such application, just the demand for such application, just increasing in the near future. Second use case is the food and beverage industry, where we're also working with some of the largest food manufacturers in Korea, and they also have very disparate types of machines and vendors when it comes to producing of the pies and biscuits and whatnot, the confectionaries, and we help them aggregate all the data from their machines, help them manage the quality to be very uniform across the billions of cookies that they produce every year. So we help them with uh, overall the quality management aspect of their production.
Okay, so now you've mentioned this EU battery regulation twice, and it's I think it's you mentioned that it's a regulation that states that everybody should show the source, if I can remember, of their the emission data of their suppliers and everything. Yes. So when is this likely to? Can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, so the Delegated Act, which is kind of the final phase of this regulation, is supposed to be passed. Everybody is expecting it to be passed sometime in 2025, and the details of this regulation has been already made public in this year, actually. But we're still waiting for it to be finalized with the Delegated Act. So a lot of the battery manufacturers that we talk regularly with are anticipating this to be live very soon.
Okay. So now, so now these batteries you're talking about, is it just the batteries for, let's say, solar, electric cars, or every single type of battery?
Yeah, so anything above 2 kilowatt hour is
Oh.
what's mandated with this regulation.
Oh, okay, okay. So that means if this regulation comes into place, how do you feel this would because a lot of people these days when they talk about electric cars, they make this comment that the cars are clean, but the source of the power is not clean. So how do you say this regulation, this your technology tracking this source of the emissions and go for the batteries? How would you say it would improve that sentiment on electric cars?
For sure, I think such comment is quite valid to a certain point. Like, and I think this regulation is directly answering some of the questions that are raised by consumers, by at least ensuring that manufacturing of these, let's say, EV batteries, are done responsibly in a way that's not harmful to the environment. But as far as I know, this regulation doesn't mandate how or where the obviously the consumer level usage of these batteries. Yeah, this is just talking about the manufacturing aspect of these batteries,
Okay.
but which I think is a great start.
Yeah, yeah, it is. So now for companies, I think you've worked with you've mentioned a couple of companies, food and beverage, batteries, different industries you've worked with. When you get this extract this data from those disparate, those heterogeneous machines and all that, what have you seen surprise these companies most when they start looking at this data, when they start looking at the results, the analysis of this data?
Yeah, I think every industry has different kind of aha moment or kind of surprises, but mm, I think the surprises often come from places where they don't expect them to come from. And also another aspect is that with the data that's readily available, these manufacturing companies can actually increase throughput or increase bottom line um, quite easily, I would say, as in it's matter of just shifting resources and better utilization of their lines without actually having to invest in additional lines. So the fact that this data can actually help immensely on their bottom line or even top line is quite a surprise to many of these companies. But that's that kind of why these companies invest in our software and kind of the service that we provide in the first place. So I wouldn't call it a surprise, maybe, but maybe it surprises me that they already own this data, but by utilizing the data that they already own, they can hugely boost their bottom line and top line. Is a pretty surprising thing for me.
Okay. So now coming back to sustainability, green tech, can you tell of a time when your software, applying your software, implementing your software in a company helped them make a very big difference or a noticeable difference in their environmental impacts?
Yeah, so I mean, I think there are a couple examples. We work with quite energy intensive companies, companies that melt metal um, and form them into different products. So I think just any slight modification of their process or just utilization of machines, also depending on what time of the day, what type of energy sources they use, can have huge impact on the environmental impact. um, so maybe that's a very easy kind of example. The other one is not necessarily environmental impact, but I mentioned food processing or food manufacturing company that we helped with, and we help with the quality management, which means let's say we help them with 5% increase in their quality, meaning also 5% decrease in their defects, which is 5% less waste that they're throwing out from their raw ingredients. So I think that indirectly helps by just kind of wasting less, and that's good for the environment.
Amazing. So now for a factory, looking at all the data you've gathered from the different companies, the different businesses, the different factories you've worked with, for a factory that wants to be more green. So looking at this data, what would you say is the most impactful thing or the smallest change you can make that will make the most impact in that
Yeah,
aspect?
um, I would say maybe going back to my point about scope three emission, and I think it's true for almost every type of manufacturing industry, whether it be EV battery sector or food manufacturing. 50 to 80% of greenhouse gas emissions actually come from scope three emission, meaning they come from their supply chain rather than the site itself. Unless we're talking about maybe cement, which I think is the manufacturing process itself is very, very energy intensive. Most of the processing actually comes from how the materials or how the parts that make up the final product, how much of the emission they make. So I would say easiest or maybe most natural way to reduce emission and be more environmentally friendly would be to better understand your supply chain, and then make whatever reasonable kind of decisions on how they can improve their environmental impact by perhaps choosing a vendor that's a little bit more environmentally responsible and friendly. And also thinking about, I think circular economy is a big topic nowadays, but there are a lot of recycled components that a manufacturer can use. So just thinking about the bill of materials, what makes up a final product in general, I think will get you a long way.
Amazing. So now, looking at your industry, the factory technology industry, the green factory technology industry, um, looking at it, looking into the future and everything, what green factory technology gets you excited, gets you thinking?
Yeah, obviously, Glassdome, our business really, obviously, we're passionate about what we do, and the fact that there's so much data in manufacturing sites and just in operations in general, and there are a lot of things you can do with it, gets us excited. So, better usage of data, especially when maybe let's say 5 years down the road, when companies like ours has helped gathering of data in manufacturing sector, and such data is readily available. And use of AI technology, for example, like LLM nowadays are so capable in just helping these companies better navigate different challenges, is very exciting for me. So this um, data data related technologies, and at the end of the day, use of AI to make the difference is very exciting for me. Um, on the other hand, maybe like there are a lot of different um, sustainable or renewable energy sources that are being readily available for manufacturing companies. Like solar, obviously, is becoming super cheap, and there are other renewable technologies that can help manufacturing companies like reduce direct emissions. But it's going to take more years, and it's not directly related to our business. But I'm personally excited about those kind of technologies.
Nice. So you mentioned AI and LLMs helping businesses process more of this their data. So what kind of impact have you seen AI have? Because I know in practically every industry, almost everybody I've talked to has applied this AI and data to their data and gotten very good, great results. So what impact have you seen in your own industry?
Yeah, I would say manufacturing still has a long way to go when it comes to kind of utilization of AI in general, because I would say the challenge is not really around AI and the sophistication of the algorithms and whatnot, but the availability of good quality data.
Data.
As I mentioned at the beginning, by nature of just how manufacturing works, data is in most cases and most sites we visit siloed, and not shared or not uniformly managed within a company. So that makes using or utilizing of AI super difficult for these companies. So I just personally think it'll take many, many more years for manufacturing companies to be able to reap benefits from AI technologies.
Okay, so now for Glassdome, looking into the maybe the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, what should we expect from Glassdome? New features, new products, or anything? What's in the future
Yeah,
for
for sure.
Glassdome?
Yeah, so maybe just to start with very specific examples and initiatives, we actually recently did a ceremony with Siemens, which is a big German industrial company, and we're working with them together on exchanging of product carbon footprint data. They specialize in data exchange, and we specialize in calculation of those product carbon footprint values. So when we think about next 3 to 5 years, in partnering with these industry leaders like Siemens, we want to empower as many companies as possible to be able to respond to the regulatory demands that basically mandates the site-specific emissions data. So kind of increasing our footprint with partners like Siemens is a very exciting um, kind of thing in the near future. And also in terms of our product roadmap, just there's so much work to be done, but having more specific features that help the customers react to these regulatory demands. For example, EU battery regulation is just the first piece, but there are some regulations that are coming online in the U.S. That pertains to just usage of their manufacturing data, and also managing their supply chain as well. Um, yeah, is in our product roadmap. Yeah, so maybe that's kind of a description of what we have in the pipeline.
Yeah, okay. So now for a company, I think you've mentioned a couple of companies in different industries, like I said, mostly manufacturers who have implemented your software. So for a company who your software would help, but they want to be greener, and but they don't know where to start because, like you said, the data is just in different places, not cohesive or anything. So for a company like that that wants to be greener, that wants to use their data better, but they don't know where to start, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I think engaging with different kinds of thought leaders to just learn more about what options are available to them is a good start. Um, Basically, without choosing to just implement a solution right away. So anyone who has a good consultative approach to helping them out, I think is a great start. And get some quick wins by doing proof of concept projects to prove an idea and see quick returns is a great idea as well. So yeah, working with any companies or solution providers that has a consulting services, and then with that, see quick returns, and then maybe think about implementing a concrete solution or system would be the steps I recommend.
Amazing. So now, for a listener who has listened to this and they want to continue this conversation about sustainable manufacturing, improving the use of their data while manufacturing, or probably they want to learn more about Glassdome or learn more about you, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, glassdome.com, glassdome.com. And yeah, just, send us a note and we should be able to help you out.
All right. So glassdome.com, that will be on the screen for those watching on video and in the show notes for those on the audio platform. So thank you so much, Simon, for coming on. Thank you so much for sharing with us on GreenTech Pulse today.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. And for the listeners, I hope you've learned something about sustainable manufacturing. I hope you've, if you know anybody who is having this problem, siloed data they can't reasonably use, probably just forward this episode to them. And if you want to learn more about green tech, listen to the remaining episodes. Next week, a new one will be out. Till then, bye for now.